keeping it relatively short and sweet and casual in this month's wrap-up. Me already losing my train of thought 10 seconds into the video. We love. Hey there, storytellers, welcome back to my channel. Today's video, as you can see from the title down below, is my June wrap-up. And like I said, I'm keeping it casual, gonna try to keep it short and sweet.
Now let me make this quite plain. This is a lie.
If you see me glancing, it's because I have some notes on my books because I'm trying to keep my thoughts in order for you all. So, who even asked for Alexa's opinion? Jeez, she hears everything. Like I said, got some notes, keeping it short, keeping it sweet. Without any further ado, let's get into this wrap-up. The first book I finished in June, you have kind of already heard me talk about in a wrap-up, and that is because I thought I would finish it before I finished I Want to Be Where You Are, but it ended up being flipped. So the first one is World of Wonders by Amy Nezuko-Matato. This is a memoir. It's nonfiction, of course, and I described it as part anecdotes, part field guide. By that, I mean she literally interwove her own personal experiences with facts about different animals and plants and phenomena and nature, and she related them to her own personal experiences that she had with these creatures or things that made her think of those creatures, if that makes sense. It's unique to me. Maybe people have done things similar to this in the past, but it is a totally unique format to me to sort of mesh your stories along with nature. I know people tend to relate their stories to something, so that's not new, that's just memoir, but I've never seen it done quite like this. And sometimes her facts about these creatures or plants are so seamlessly interwoven that you don't even realize she's just straight up giving you like almost like a Wikipedia download to your brain, the quick and fun facts about these creatures or plants or whatever. It's just that I thought that was so much fun. She describes her life and you get to know her and her stories, but it's also just a wonderful ode to nature. You can tell she really loves the world and she appreciates it and respects it and tries to honor it. And I think this book does it a justice. I give it a 5 out of 5. It was so good. Her prose and her cadence throughout her narration is just a true testament to the fact that she is both a poet and an English professor, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. But it's very clear that she spends a lot of time around words, that she loves and respects them as much as she loves and respects nature, so it just marries together so well. 5 out of 5. It is a very short read. Each of the sections is super short, so you can fly through a few of them and put it down for a while and pick it up, which is what I did. I kept setting it aside for a little while after reading a few paragraphs here and there, so it's not something you have to read all in one go. I'm sure it's delightful if you do, but it's also really nice if you don't. I enjoyed my reading experience being a little bit separated because it allowed me to appreciate each part on its own and not feel like I barreled through and just got it done to get it done. The second book I finished in June was The Princess Diaries by Meg Cabot. I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with The Princess Diaries already, or at least the movie, which I'm a big fan of. And I have another book that I'm hoping to get to very soon that was kind of billed as a similar to The Princess Diaries and Crazy Rich Asians, like if you took the two and put them together, which very much excited me, but it put me in the mood for The Princess Diaries, and I think I've maybe read it once before this. I don't remember for sure, but I'm pretty sure that I did, and so I decided to give it another reread. It's a YA contemporary, it's the first in the series, you know the deal. I like it, I don't love it. I liked it in a really nostalgic kind of way. It just because it kind of calls back to when I originally read it way back when, I'm assuming I'm remembering correctly, and all those times I watched the movie as a kid and, a month ago. It's really different from the movie in some ways. So if you really love the movie, you might not actually really love the book. To me, Mia comes across as slightly more immature and self-centered and minorly annoying in the novel, but it's also her diary. You're literally just reading her diary entries, and so that makes sense because she's going through this crazy thing where she finds out she's a princess and her life gets upended, and on the one hand you're like, okay, that's insane, of course she's reacting to it, but on the other hand, of course, it's over dramatic and angsty and self-centered in her diary. It's literally her thoughts, her private thoughts going onto the page, so it makes a lot of sense, but it's kind of annoying to read. There are some major differences between some of the characters in the book versus the movie. I won't spoil it all in case you're planning on reading it, although it's been out a while, so I don't know how much of a spoiler it is. But in particular, I want to talk about Michael and Lily, two people she's known for a very long time, her best friends. And, well, Lily's her best friend, Michael's Lily's brother. And Lily is less present in the book than she is in the movie, and Michael is slightly more present, and that is because Mia's thinking about him and therefore putting him into the diary. She's mad at Lily a couple times in the novel, and so she just sort of mentions that she's mad at her. She's not actually interacting with Lily. But I do like that about the book, that Michael gets a little bit more development, but on the other hand, the movie's not that bad. You know, you get the sense that he likes her in the movie, so it's an up and down kind of situation. There's things that are fun about the book, there's things that are kind of different and less fun. To me, this may be, you know, I promise it doesn't happen a lot, but this is one of those times where I think the film is better than the book. I'm sorry. I know, but I can't help it. The film is just beautifully done. It's so perfect. It has Miss Julie Andrews, and I love her. She's always so great. So I'm biased. I love the film. The book's okay. The audiobook, which is what I did for this time around, was definitely way better because Miss Anne Hathaway reads it, and I do think she embodies Mia. She gets the character on such a full level. You could tell she got that in the movie, and you can tell from her reading the novel that she just gets Mia, and that makes it a really fun listen, at least. Oh, before we move on, I give it 4 out of 5 stars. The third book I read in June was Better Together by Christine Riccio, and this is the extended, slightly Barnes & Noble exclusive edition. This is a YA contemporary with a dash of magical realism thrown in. It was billed as The Parent Trap meets Freaky Friday, and I did not see how I could not pick it up just based on that tagline alone, because they're both great films. No matter what version you watch, they're fun. So I absolutely felt like I had to pick it up. It's about two sisters who are, how do I describe it? They've been separated for over a decade, and they come together unintentionally at a retreat up in Colorado, a sort of rediscover yourself thing, and they rediscover each other instead. I'm going to start off by saying I loved this book. It was so much fun. It's one of those ones that it was so entertaining the entire time. I just kept wanting to read it. I absolutely loved it. I was a tad concerned that Siri would be a little bit annoying at first. Based on her first few pages, she has a quirk. She likes to replace swear words with other words, and a la like The Good Place, if you've seen that show. And it was driving me crazy in the first few pages. I came to accept it. I came to appreciate that quirk and her personality and why she had it. And as I read on, her sister Jamie also has quirks and idiosyncrasies and annoying traits. So they were very real, flawed characters, and I appreciated that. Because they were so flawed and the trauma and growth that they went through was so intense, it was really believably done. Obviously, the magical realism element kind of, you gotta suspend your disbelief for a little bit there. But otherwise, the growth and the journeys they both took to literally rediscover themselves, because that is ultimately what the story's about, discovering themselves and each other again. And the journey they went on is very realistic. They fought certain things tooth and nail, you know. It's hard to change, and redefining your future or committing to a future that's very daunting can be very realistic thing that everyone deals with. So I thought their growth and the way it was handled in the book was really beautifully executed. It didn't feel contrived in any way. It felt like a journey that I would have gone on with them, and I appreciated that. It absolutely delivered on the Parent Trap camp vibes and the Freaky Friday switch moment. That was so much fun. I did not want this book to end. It was so good. Like, I love the ending, wraps up so nicely. I really appreciated it. And this version has a bonus series chapter, so you get a little bit more, which was amazing, but I didn't want it to end because it was so much fun and so good. The parents, by the way, are awful, but in like a really fun, I can't believe they're this awful kind of way. Like, I can't believe they did that. It's a fun time. I highly recommend. 5 out of 5. The next book I did was called The Mystery of Mrs Christie by Marie Benedict, whose actual name is Heather Terrell, and it is a historical fiction mystery story. It's a fictional account of the 11 days that Agatha Christie went missing. You heard that right, folks. She really did go missing, and this is a fictional account of what might have happened during that time. I should start by saying that she really did go missing, and she came back sort of saying she had no idea what happened in the, I think some accounts say it's 9 days, some 11. At any rate, she comes back kind of claiming amnesia. She doesn't know what happened. She doesn't remember, and that's kind of how it's been left. People don't really know what happened to Agatha Christie in those 11 days. So I was immediately excited by this concept of what happened to her while she was missing for 11 days and came back fine. Like, what? It's told in dual timeline point of view, and I need to elaborate on that a little bit because one of them is, one timeline is called the manuscript, and it is Agatha from first person point of view, and she's telling the story of how she met her husband Archie and what was going on in their marriage and how she came to feel the day like right before she went missing. And it's that account, and it's kind of awesome because you get this background a little bit. You have to kind of take it with a grain of salt. Take everything in this novel with a grain of salt. That's what I have to say. Without spoiling anything, but you get her story and the story of how they met. So it kind of works great because it kicks off with a third-person limited point of view from her husband Archie's perspective when he first finds out that she's missing. And it's wild from the second it kicks off, and immediately you get this sense of not everything's the way it seems, and you need to be paying attention to things that are going on because something's not quite adding up. I really liked both of those characters' voices. Archie's not a particularly likable guy, but I liked the voice that was given to him. I liked his inner monologue of thoughts. I think it helps to illustrate where Agatha's coming from in her point of view in the manuscript. It meshes up really nicely. I think it's interwoven really beautifully. I like I said, both of their tones of voice. Agatha's was very almost kind of wistful and nostalgic the entire time, and yet very intense and commanding, and I really appreciated that. It was a fun take on what happened to this author for 11 days. I really enjoyed it. I remembered reading the Murder on the Orient Express in 7th grade, and I kind of just forgot. I didn't forget about Agatha Christie, like I know her name, but I just hadn't picked up any of her books, even though I really enjoyed that and I remembered really enjoying that. But for whatever reason, I didn't pick up any more, and this story just reignited my interest in Agatha Christie and her stories, so I think I'm going to pick up some of those soon. But it's a fun read. It's by no means perfect because it's not an actual account. It's not an autobiographical account of what actually happened, but it's a really fun interpretation of what could have happened, and it's done with kind of this fun nod to all of Agatha Christie's mysteries and all the craziness that goes on and her ability to weave a beautiful plot. It's a lot of fun. Given the fact that it was focused on her disappearance and why it happened and what happened, I liked where the story wrapped up. I could have gone for more. I was definitely having a fun time, but I think it wraps up nicely. I think it ends where it needs to end. You know, sometimes as readers, we want the stories to go on a little bit longer, but they're meant to end where they do for a certain reason. So I accept it begrudgingly, but definitely a 5 out of 5 for me. It was a fun listen, actually. I listened to the audiobook. Next, I read Witchlight by Jessie Zabarski, and it was a YA fantasy graphic novel about two girls who sort of start off at odds, literally, and they find their friendship and even more. I wanted to like this one more than I did. I don't have qualms with like overarching bits of it. Like, I liked the concept, the plot itself was pretty good, the art style was beautiful, and that really should make a good graphic novel, but something just wasn't clicking for me on this one. The panels themselves were beautiful. The author clearly is familiar with the graphic novel comic style format and really commanded it well, I would say, to the point that it was almost too well done for somebody who's not overly familiar with this storytelling format. It became a little bit hard to grasp. I didn't particularly like either character, Sanja or Lilac, mostly because I felt like I couldn't get to know them, and that was due to the fact that there wasn't a ton of text. There definitely was text, but a lot of it was told in just plain visual panels, not plain, but like just visuals, and a lot of it was almost nonverbal communication between the characters, which can be hard enough to decipher, you know, watching a live action person make facial expressions, let alone in a static 2D rendering of a person. And I think if you're a more seasoned graphic novel comic reader, you might not have that issue because it was very detailed illustrations. There was definitely a lot going on, but I personally was having trouble following the panels in the story because I'm not overly familiar with that format. At any rate, both of the girls were kind of mildly annoying to me. Lilac was a little bit over aggressive, and Sanja wasn't overly aggressive but was kind of boring to me. Like I said, I just couldn't connect with them the way I wanted to. It seems like a fun story. Like, it's about a witch and this other girl meeting and forming a friendship, and there's so much more growth in the story than that little summary lets on. They go on quite the journey. It's kind of intense, but I still felt wishing I had a little bit more. It was one of those times, and I hate saying it because I like graphic novels as a concept, but it's one of those times that I wish it was almost more a traditional novel than a graphic novel because I wanted more than I was getting from the characters. And like I said, I think part of that is on me as a reader because I'm not overly familiar with this format, but I ended up giving it a 3 out of 5 stars. Next came another graphic novel that fared slightly better called Bloom by Kevin Panetta. It is a YA contemporary graphic novel. It's got strong LGBT plus themes, and I just found out that it is pretty likely the first in at least of 2 graphic novels. So there's a sequel coming out, so I've heard. Now, don't get me wrong, this one was cute, but I also ran into the issue of I didn't love either character that much, and especially I didn't love them together. One of them seemed like he had commitment issues, and one of them was trying to discover himself and was being a jerk to a lot of people in the process, just getting all kinds of mixed up, which is understandable on both ends. There was reasons for it, and that was valid. But together, I felt like they didn't work through enough of what was going on with them as individuals for it to make sense and for me to be able to root for them to come together as a couple, because it doesn't seem particularly healthy to me. And I hope that in the second one, it gets explored a little bit more. Maybe they do have a little bit of trials and tribulations in their relationship to work out, to grow. Who knows? I like the art style. Like I said, it was cute. I wanted to root for them. The moments where they were genuinely letting their guard down and working in the bakery together were very adorable, and that was where I wanted to root for them, when they were sort of being vulnerable with each other versus trying to put up their defenses. I like that it's realistic because people do have their defense is up. People don't always let their guard down with someone right away, or they do and then something happens and it puts their guard up again. It was very realistic and I appreciated that, but sometimes when I'm reading little things like that, just cute graphic novels, I just want it to be cute, okay? I don't want to have relationship issues all the time. I just want it to be cute. Why can't it just be cute sometimes? At any rate, it was not bad. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. All right, we are on the last 2 that I read in June or am reading. I have a few days left, so don't yell at me just yet. I think I should finish them this weekend, or at least one of them. I really hope to, but I'm in the process of reading both of these novels, so I'm giving you what I assume is going to be they're my preliminary sort of ratings for these books and my preliminary critiques, although one of them I'm pretty solid on, and I will explain it in just a second. And the other one, I am still developing feelings for. I'm not as far into, so anyway. The second to last book that I am finishing reading currently in June is The Box in the Woods by Maureen Johnson. It is a YA mystery. It is part of the Truly Devious universe, but it is a standalone story. You do not need to read the first 3 books to understand what is going on in this one. Everything you need to know is contained. You just get a little bit more of the characters because it follows Stevie Bell and her friends from Ellingham to a summer camp in the woods where people got murdered in the 70s, and I suspect people are getting murdered again. I fell in love with Stevie and the gang in the first 3 novels, so picking this one up was like falling into a conversation with old friends. You know, you just pick up and you haven't missed a beat, even though you haven't seen each other in a while, and I just appreciated that. It was kind of like coming home. I was like, oh, there they are. They're my little crime fighters that don't really want to be crime fighters, except for Stevie, who keeps dragging everybody into everything. I'm about halfway through this one right now, and it's started to kick up in the drama. It kicks off with an account of what is happening in the past as all her Stevie Bell mysteries are written in dual timelines, so you get what is going on sort of at the time of the actual crime that Stevie's trying to solve and what is going on present day for Stevie. Usually, again, like I said, she's getting into shenanigans and they're not usually safe ones. So there's a lot of tension, and it kicks off with the 70s, and I was like, oh, I'm just gonna give it a little glance. I'll probably read something else. I couldn't read something else after I read I got a couple pages in and I had to finish the first chapter, and then the first chapter was wild and I had to keep reading, and so now I'm halfway through, and I put it down for 2 days because I've been busy, and that's been hurting me because I need to know how this ends, guys. I need to. Based on what I know of Maureen Johnson's storytelling, I am going to give this a 5 out of 5. I'm going to love this book because like I said, it felt like coming home, but I also really enjoy the way Maureen Johnson plants clues. They're there, but they're very subtle sometimes, to the point where, like, I feel like she's not really trying to create red herrings. Maybe she is. I don't know. I haven't asked her. But I feel like she's not intentionally trying to create red herrings, but you have so many, you're processing so many things the way Stevie is processing so many things that you're starting to go, okay, this person, and you're missing some of the subtle clues that point out to who it gets to. And I can say that because I did finish the first 3, and at the end there, you're like, oh, like I kind of didn't see it coming, but I guess it kind of works out, and and I hope she blows me away like that with this one, because it's reminding me of those like campy, like late 70s, early 80s Halloween movies, like Halloween and Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th, all those like crazy, like campy slasher movies where things go wrong at like summer camps or over like school breaks and stuff like that. It just has those vibes, and I appreciate that. I highly recommend any of them, but if you're somebody who wants a standalone and you don't want to commit to a full set of mystery novels, I highly recommend this one, especially if you want a little bit of a spooky summer vibe. This is perfect. It is set in the summer at a summer camp, but it's spooky. It's awesome. I'm loving it. I'm definitely going to give it a 5 out of 5 stars. I really don't foresee anything that could come up that would change that for me. And last but not least, the final book that I'm trying to finish in June, as of right now, is Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. It's a YA fantasy. It is book 1 of the Grisha trilogy. I am actually listening to it on audiobook, even though I own the physical editions as well. I find right now, given the way my brain is, I'm having trouble sitting down and physically reading fantasy, even though I'm enjoying fantasy stories. So I'm like, you know what? If listening to them is how it's gotta be for my brain to get these stories in, then that's what we're gonna do. So we're doing it. But I like the narration so far. I'm not overly attached to it. It's not wowing me. I don't know her name, but I like the narrator's voice. I think it suits Alina from what I've gleaned of her character. She is somebody who discovers she's a little bit more extraordinary than she thought she was, given she thinks she's just an orphan girl, and she finds out she's much more than that. I'm hoping Alina grows into herself and becomes a little bit stronger. Right now, she's a little bit meek, a little bit shy, and in part, she's choosing to do that to herself. She does not want to be outstanding in the center of attention. She wants to fade away, and I just don't want that for her. I want her to be just a badass chick doing Grisha things. Just want her to do it. Like I said, I'm not as far into this one. I think I'm about a quarter of the way in. I'm indifferent kind of to Alina right now. I'm very intrigued by the magic system. I like the variety of powers that we have going on. I'm kind of interested to know more about the Darkling for sure. They've alluded to a lot of his power, but in vague terms, he's just the Darkling. So I don't know how I feel about him just yet, other than he's the Darkling, and he's clearly a very intense dude. But I'm intrigued to know about him. I like Jenya, I think is her name. She kind of came out the gate a little bit sassy, and I appreciated that in a character, so I think I'm gonna like her throughout the series. I guess there's really not much else, because I really haven't gotten far enough to give you full thoughts. You'll probably hear about this one in July. I'll probably touch base on it a little bit just to round out my thoughts for you guys and give you my final rating. But I want to say maybe this will be around a 3.5, 4. Y'all know it. I've said it before. I am not somebody who enjoys the first book in a series very much. It's things kicking off and it has to happen, but I like the meat, the middle books a lot more. I like when things are fully kicked off and craziness is just going on. That's where I vibe. So I don't foresee this being my favorite of the Grisha trilogy by any means. I think I'm going to like it enough to want to continue. I'm definitely very intrigued by the Netflix show, but I know it meshes up the Grisha trilogy and the Six of Crows duology, so I wanted to get to those ASAP so that I could watch the show and see how I feel about everything all together and see if I hate it or love it. But I know it got renewed for season 2, so I have plenty of time to catch up, because I can binge a TV series like nobody's business. So that's that. But that is it for this video. If you enjoyed it, let me know by leaving a like down below. And if you've read any of these novels and have any input or thoughts or questions, anything you got for me, throw it my way down in the comments. I'd love to start a discourse with you guys about anything you're reading, especially if it's something I've just read as well. I like to do that, so feel free to engage. But like I said, I'm gonna get going. Next week's video is going to be my July bullet journaling video, so you have that to look forward to. But if you want to keep up with me and all of my bookish adventures, you should go ahead and click the subscribe button, and I highly recommend that you ring the little bell so that you don't miss a beat. It'll notify you when I post videos, and that way you can be the first one here to see the craziness, the shenanigans, the weird accents that I've started doing in my videos. You can be privy to it all right away. But I do post videos every Friday, so I will see you guys on the next one. Bye!